Okay, altMBA Project 1, all about goal setting. And I'm going to take a little unique approach to putting together my blog for the altMBA. So this is all about goals. Identify the goals. My overall goal is to launch a policy corner on theproducemom.com by February 9th, 2016. Second step is here to list the benefits. In other words, what's in it for me? Well, at the end of the day, there are many influencers in the food industry, and as I strive to segregate and redefine the produce mom, I must mold this brand to be the premier advocate and bridge to consumers for the fresh produce industry. So much of our opportunity in the field of agriculture is defined by policy. Involvement in policy and grassroots marketing efforts focused on getting more fresh produce into schools not only benefits my children, my community, and my business partners who are in the business of selling fresh produce, but it also benefits me and my goal to have my work through the Produce Mom defined as industry advocacy and marketing rather than food blogging or mommy blogging. So now on to the next set here, the next question, list the obstacles to overcome. Well, number one, policy is really boring. No one electively, other than politicians and a few random people who work in policy, would say, oh, it's a lot of fun to talk about politics and policy. No, policy's boring. Number two, people do not want to click on links or take action that requires putting in their personal information, such as their home address. And that is going to be an essential step to closing that circle and tackling how are we going to engage a consumer following of the Produce Mom in getting involved in child nutrition policy. Another obstacle number three, my audience is very defined at the Produce Mom. They're there because they want to know how to select, store, and serve their fruits and vegetables. They are accustomed to a content pattern. Throwing in a new content offering that is focused on policy is going to be changed for everyone. Next step, list the skills and knowledge required. Okay, well, in order to manage and own an effort that is going to be all about educating people on policy, I myself am going to have to read all the bills in both the House and the Senate that affect child nutrition policy and the 2015 Child Nutrition Reauthorization. I will need knowledge on all the Senate and House Ag Committee members and identify the elected officials that are focused on child nutrition policy, as well as specifically elected officials that are very passionate or focused on the access of fresh produce in schools, as well as underserved communities. Another skill or knowledge need that I would have in this effort will be, I'm pretty familiar now, but I'm really gonna have to learn all the details of in-school wellness and nutrition serving programs that are required or offered to schools through the USDA. So what I'm talking about is programs like the Healthier US School Challenge Smarter Lunchrooms, USDA Team Nutrition, Smart Snacks, the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, and more. There's a lot of them. Identify, so let's see, the next step here on the assignment is to identify the people and groups to work with. This is key. You're only as good as the company you keep, right? So if I'm going to spearhead an effort to and really set this goal to activate and bring policy awareness to the ProduceMom.com, I am going to need help. And the first organization I'm going to turn to is the United Fresh Produce Association. That is our industry's representation on the Hill, and they're there every day lobbying for all of agriculture, but specifically the fresh produce industry. Next, and this is a biggie, the fresh produce industry brands that fund political campaigns. in my brief experience on the Hill doing some lobbying, I learned that, you know, at the end of the day, those who are funding the campaigns, they've got a really strong voice. So if I can identify who in the fresh produce industry is funding political campaigns, I can use them as another extension of support for this effort. I'm going to have to connect with school administrators and school wellness policy coordinators, because to the child nutrition policy, especially where my passions and interests lie, it's 100% centric right now around the fresh fruit and vegetable access in schools. So I'm going to have to get school leadership activated and involved. I'm also going to need to enlist the help of school food service directors. These men and women, they are managing so much. They have their hands tied with what they can select. Trust me, at the end of the day, I know most of them would prefer to serve all fresh. They can't, and it usually comes down to cost. They have to serve a complete meal that meets all these very strict requirements for less than $3 per student. And so therefore, the last sector that I know I'm going to have to get in touch with is school district finance offices. I think we overlook this when we are trying to solve problems at schools or strategize on how we can improve schools. So much of our schools, so much of the limitations in schools, especially within the cafeteria, it seems to almost always come down to money and funding and budget. So definitely going to get the finance officers involved from the district. Develop a plan of action. First step, and I've luckily already done this, is to get a commitment from Erin Grether to author the policy corner on the ProduceMom.com. Erin is one of our grassroots policy experts with United Fresh Produce Association, so it's awesome to have her interest and verbal commitment in being part of this. Number 2 is to introduce Erin as the child nutrition policy expert and the new author to this new piece of content that we are going to now have on the ProduceMom.com. So I'm going to have to introduce Erin to the following. Number 3 is segregate the emails. We noticed when I was getting pretty involved with the fresh produce stuff, with the fresh produce policy stuff, we saw an increase in the opt-out on our email subscribers, and you don't want that. We're actively trying to grow our subscriber database, so I don't want to introduce content that people are going to be like, ugh, and opt out. No thanks. So segregating the email will be very important. Setting my deadlines. So here are my deadlines. Number 1, Erin's going to be introduced via our current standing campaign called Ask the Produce Expert. We're getting ready to publish our 12th edition, so the following is very enthusiastic and engaged with this series on the blog. So we are going to introduce Erin through an Ask the Produce Expert and introduce her as the child nutrition policy expert for the fresh produce industry. And that will publish on February 2nd. The policy corner itself will go live with bi-monthly updates authored by Erin on February 9th. The first newsletter campaign that will include a policy corner newsletter, my goal for that is February 15th. And then building the newsletter database. I know this is going to be hard. Somehow, I'm going to have to spend more time on this. How do I get people to opt in to a newsletter that's all about policy? So I know that there is a demographic where that is of the utmost interest. How do I find that demographic? Where do I need to be networking and promoting this offering that is new to the ProduceMom.com? And then also at the same time, how do I make sure that the people who wouldn't normally find themselves interested in policy, how do I get them to move the needle and realize that if they don't get involved and they don't take a stand, that their son or daughter's school is at risk of replacing all of the current fresh fruits and vegetables with processed forms. And I don't know a single parent that is going to stand silent knowing that their child's fresh broccoli florets could potentially be replaced with mushy frozen broccoli stems. So that will certainly be a strategy for the achievement and part of the deadline as well. Through United Fresh Produce Association, they do offer what's called a BiPAC microsite. And I am a member through the Produce Mom. I'm a member of United Fresh, so I have access to integrating that microsite onto my website. So that is the final phase of my my deadline for my immediate deadlines for achievement for this goal and getting this policy corner up and running. And I would like to have my BiPAC microsite up no later than March. So, all right, thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my altMBA group. I had an amazing day. So, thank you guys for your interest in child nutrition policy and keeping FFVP fresh. It's so important that our schools have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. For so many kids in America, the schools are the only sustainable it's the only sustainable food chain in their lives. So we have to make sure we protect that with a lot of fresh